5 figures walk along a stone pathway, shrouded by foliage. Lastiara coaches herself through inner turmoil. What's to come must happen. One of her companions asks her if all is well. She responds with a smile. Is it real confidence or false confidence? A voice cuts through the dark like a blade. Welcome back, Aikawa Kanami. Kanami's eyes open. He is sitting on a stone platform inside a vast pillared hall, one hand pressed to his forehead. The silence is absolute. He cannot remember how he got here, and he does not know where here is. Kanami moves through the arched corridors, trying to piece together his last memory. He had been at the hospital with Hitaki. He barely has time to think before a primal chill runs through him. Behind him, a massive segmented shape unfurls from the shadows, its pale eyes catching no light at all. A centipede the size of a pillar coils around the stone column above him, its countless legs clicking against the rock. Kanami's silhouette shrinks beneath it. The creature's head swings down, mandibles spread wide, and it lunges. Kanami runs, screaming, the centipede crashing through the dark behind him. His foot comes down on something wet and fleshy. He looks down. A cluster of enormous eyeballs on glistening stalks twitches on the floor. He recoils, stumbling back, every nerve in his body telling him this is real. He keeps running, demanding of himself whether any of this is real, whether he is dreaming, but the smell of stone and blood says otherwise. Then voices reach him through the dark. He skids to a stop, staring through an archway into a brightly lit hall where something enormous is moving. A light-haired youth nearby snaps to attention, hearing the same sound. Kanami stumbles into the light and freezes. A warrior in plate armor is trading blows with a pale, monstrous creature, sparks and impact bursts filling the hall. A swordswoman shouts a battle cry as she charges. Kanami stands in the doorway, completely unable to process what he is seeing. He stares at the monster and asks himself if that is what he thinks it is. 3 adventurers work the hall together, the armored warrior, the swordswoman, and a mage positioned at the far end. A horned white wolf lunges, and the warrior shouts for the group to regroup and strike when the creature's guard drops. The wolf does not wait. It slams into the warrior and sends him skidding backward across the stone. Kanami breaks into a run toward the adventurers, arm outstretched, begging for help. The warrior and the swordswoman both spin to look at him, confusion and alarm crossing their faces. The warrior demands to know who Kanami is. Kanami, breathless and terrified, pleads with them. The warrior's face twists with disbelief. He tells Kanami this is the dungeon, and not even the safe admin area. He demands to know if Kanami came in here unprepared. Kanami sits on the floor, looking small and bewildered. The warrior raises his arm, his shadow falling over Kanami like a wall. The warrior strikes Kanami in the leg. The adventurers are running. The armored man looks back over his shoulder, shouting that they have a solo delver and that he will serve as bait. Kanami watches them go, his eye wide and reflecting nothing. He is alone with the monster. Kanami screams at their retreating backs, demanding they stop, demanding to know why this is happening to him. His thoughts collapse into each other, a storm of rage and terror and helplessness. Then a system message surfaces in his vision, cold and mechanical. An unknown skill has activated, stabilizing his mental state in exchange for some of his emotion, adding 1 point to confusion. Panic is gone. Not faded, not quieted. Gone. Kanami stares at his own hand, sweating but composed, and wonders what just happened to him. He stands up in the dark, a small figure beneath the dungeon's vast ceiling, and looks around with clear, focused eyes. The skeletal wolf charges again, and Kanami grabs his arm and forces himself to think. He has to move. Then a shout cuts across the hall, and he looks up to see the adventurers have circled back. A woman among them raising her hands as magical energy builds between her fingers. They are not helping him. They are using him as an anchor. The spell detonates. Light and debris tear through the air. Kanami is thrown back, landing hard, smoke rising from his clothes. The wolf thrashes in the magical fire, roaring. Kanami lies on the ground staring upward, and the realization arrives like a second impact. This world has magic, and people will use it against him. Kanami scrambles to his feet, telling himself to look for an exit before the monster recovers. He glances at the wolf, and a system window materializes in the air before him, naming the creature Emerald Fang, rank 7. He stares at it. He wonders if he can use magic too. Kanami opens his menu and his status screen floods his vision. HP at 12 out of 51, MP full at 72, and under spells, ice magic, freeze. The world operates exactly like a video game. He almost laughs. Then he spots a second entry below the ice magic, dimensional magic. The Emerald Fang charges. Konami thrusts out his hand and calls for ice, not knowing if it will work, not knowing anything. A jagged block of ice crashes into existence on the dungeon floor with a heavy thud. Konami stares at it. The monster does not stop. The Emerald Fang vaults the ice block and slashes. Konami barely twists clear, the claws raking air beside his ear. He is thrown back by the next blow, hits the ground, and rolls. He gets his hand up and calls for freeze again, his voice cracking with effort. The ice is not enough. Konami crouches on the dungeon floor, panting, watching the Emerald Fang circle him. His menu is still open. The entry for dimensional magic reads, Dimension. He wonders if it will teleport him. He wonders what happens if it fails. The wolf is already moving again. Somewhere beneath the fear, a thought rises. Forget about him. Where is Hitaki? Is she all right? He is all she has got. His fist clenches. He needs to keep her safe. The thought does not comfort him. It sharpens him. Konami throws his arms wide and shouts for dimension. A luminous geometric sphere erupts outward from him, flooding the hall with light. He gasps. He can feel everything inside that sphere. The wolf's weight shifting, its next lunge telegraphed before it begins. And behind him, half buried in shadow, a sword is stuck in the ground. He lunges for it, closing the distance in a single burst, and his hand closes around the hilt. The Emerald Fang and Konami face each other across the lit hall. The wolf opens its jaws. Konami opens his mouth and charges. The impact is total. Dark energy and light collide in a single detonation that shakes the floor. Then silence. Drops of something fall onto the stone. Konami lies on his back beside the motionless wolf, chest heaving, sword on the ground next to him. A small dark crystal rests nearby, the monster's drop. He is alive. A beam of light descends from somewhere above. A system message appears, title gained, Dawn of Deep Green, plus 0.1 to strength. Konami looks at the crystal on the floor and lets out a short, exhausted laugh. This is, without question, just an RPG. Konami wraps himself in a looted cloak, binds his leg, and checks his status. HP at 7 out of 51, confusion at 1.01, blood loss at 0.52. He gradually makes his way through the dimly lit corridors. He has been taken to another world. He does not know how or why or by whom. Light spills through an opening ahead. Konami reaches the mouth of the dungeon and looks out at a bright forested landscape, blinking. He thinks of Hitaki, then forces the thought aside. He cannot afford it yet. He needs to find somewhere safe. He steps forward, hand on the sword at his hip. Konami discovers he has an inventory, a water pack, pebbles, a leather bag, magic gems, and more. He reaches into what feels like a pocket in the air itself and pulls out the water pack, which is unsettling in a way he cannot quite name. He drinks. The relief is immediate. He tells himself that if he thinks of it all as one big RPG, it makes a kind of sense. Konami stops in the forest and casts Dimension again, the dark sphere expanding around him. The spell gives him a rough map of the area, a deer-like creature to the left, a wolf-type monster to the right. He steers clear of both, moving through the trees with quiet, deliberate steps. Without warning, the world tilts. Konami stumbles, then staggers, his legs going wrong beneath him. His status screen flickers into view and one word fills it. Poison. He remembers the wolf's claws. He collapses to the ground, pressing his palm to the cold stone, and tells himself he cannot die here. He cannot. A hospital against a city skyline. A girl with long dark hair sits up in her bed and greets Konami with a quiet question. He is standing in the doorway holding flowers, and he tells her of course he came, that he is going to visit every single day. She teases him about giving up his video games for her sake. He sits on the edge of the bed and says he does not care about games, that he is all she has got and he intends to look after her. She asks if he will really be there for her forever. Her hands rest on the white sheet between them. A small, gentle smile crosses her face. Back in the dungeon, Konami grits his teeth and refuses to die. He shouts for Dimension, and the dark energy dome rises around him, enclosing him in a sphere of warded space while the poison works through his body. He is running out of time and MP both. Konami finds a road. Through the foliage, he can see people moving along it, adventurers and travelers, which means the admin area must be close. He crouches behind the trees, breathing hard, watching the groups pass and calculating which one is least likely to use him as bait. Two girls stand on the path, one looking over papers, the other with her hands raised in surprise. Konami considers approaching them, but a group nearby in dark uniforms gives him pause. One of them, a youth with spiky light hair, carries himself with the kind of bearing that suggests he has seen real trouble. Konami decides to wait. The spiky-haired youth turns. He looks directly toward the bushes where Konami is hiding and tells whoever is there to show themselves. Konami steps out from behind the tree, leaning against it for support, panting and visibly wounded. He tells the youth he is not a brigand, that he simply felt ill and needed to rest. The spiky-haired youth studies him and points out that resting off the pathway proper is a bad lie. Behind him, a silver-haired girl watches with one luminous eye. The group debates what to do with him. The spiky-haired youth leans toward Honor, muttering about chivalry and a child left alone. A masked member of the group cuts him off sharply, reminding everyone of their duty and their goal. The youth relents. They move on. Konami watches them go and exhales slowly. He is not dead yet. Then she is simply there. The silver-haired girl stands inches from Konami's face, her wide, bright eyes fixed on him, her hair catching the light like spilled moonlight. She tells him he is an intriguing one. Konami's expression goes blank with shock. The unknown skill fires again. Konami's mental state levels out with mechanical precision, and another point of confusion is added to his total. He sits on the ground beside the silver-haired girl, dazed, trying to understand what keeps happening to his emotions. The blond man from the group rushes back, alarmed, reminding the silver-haired girl that she was asked not to interact with other explorers. She waves him off, insisting a brief conversation harms no one. Konami's mind clears again, that same eerie calm settling over him. Her companion asks if she saw something with those eyes of hers. She brushes of the question with a knowing smile. The blond man asks if Konami possesses some unusual skill. She corrects him. The boy is hurt and has a status condition, so she intends to heal him. Konami realizes with a start that she can read his status menu. Before he can react, the girl raises her hands and begins to chant, her voice falling into the cadence of a healing aria. Light wraps around Konami like warm water. The poison, the blood loss, the ache in his leg, all of it lifts at once. He stares at his hands, stunned. A moment ago, he was in agony. She announces the job is done with cheerful satisfaction. Then she leans in very close and fixes him with an intense stare. The silver-haired girl examines Konami's status screen with open curiosity, murmuring to herself. His confusion stat reads 2.0, and she observes that it does not seem to be a bad thing. Konami goes cold. She is reading his menu in real time. She confirms it with a slow, knowing smile. The blond man tries to hurry her along, noting that a burn on Konami will leave a scar. She ignores him, leans close to Konami, and whispers her name, Lastiara. She tells him not to forget it. Then she turns and walks away, arms spread wide, declaring that helping people feels wonderful. Lastiara glances back with an enigmatic smile and tells Konami she will have him return the favor sooner or later. The blond man and his companion follow her, offering Konami a parting word of advice. Go straight home, and be careful out there. Konami bows and thanks them, watching until they disappear into the trees. He turns back to the road alone. They were good people, he tells himself. But he also remembers the first party that left him to die, and his eye hardens. Right now, he is the only one in this world who can be trusted to look after himself. The trees open onto a wide paved plaza, leading into a settlement of stone buildings and winding streets. Konami stands at the edge of it and takes it in. Other explorers move through the space, some resting, some departing. Mountains rise in the distance. It is enormous, and it is nothing like home. Konami pumps both fists in the air and shouts that he is saved. A guard leaning against a nearby wall gives him a dry look and tells him that is a bit dramatic. Konami explains, very seriously, that he has been through a lot today. The guard takes in Konami's tattered state and points him toward the fountain. Konami thanks him and runs, his cloak billowing. As he goes, he reflects that people here are kinder than he expected, at least in the admin area. He is alive. More than that, he is still moving forward. The fountain turns out to be a hand pump and a wooden bucket. Konami stares at it with a flat expression, then works the handle until water flows. He splashes his face, wipes it dry, and decides that better than nothing is good enough for now. Konami turns to look at the horizon. A colossal dark structure rises against the bright sky, jagged and vast, like a dead tree grown to the scale of a mountain. He stares at it for a long moment. His priority is learning about this world. The city streets are alive with creatures Konami has no name for: wolf-headed beastmen, a lizard person with an axe, a fairy no larger than a hand, an elf girl with wide dark eyes. The roads are paved in flat stone, nothing like the roads he grew up with. Konami stands in the middle of the crowd and thinks, yes, another world, no question. He finds a stone monument with a map carved into it. The word Huzyards is written across the top. Below it, text describes knights and a great war. Konami stares at it and realizes with a jolt that he can read every word of a language he has never studied. The speech of everyone around him is being translated directly into his head. Beastmen, humans, a creature with horns and a snout, all of them talking and all of it arriving in his mind as plain, clear language. He thinks that his brain has been tampered with. The unknown skill fires a third time, and his confusion counter climbs. Konami stands very still and thinks about the skill that keeps activating. He does not know its name because the system hides it. What he knows is that without it, the panic in the dungeon would have killed him before any monster had the chance. He is grateful. He is also afraid of what it is costing him. His status screen shows confusion at 3.0. He slaps both hands against his cheeks, squares his shoulders, and steps back into the crowd. He has no choice but to rely on the skill for now. He needs to get to work. He finds the library, a tall stone building with arched windows and spires. Inside, Konami pulls book after book from the shelves and carries them to a desk, stacking them until the pile blocks the light. Other patrons watch him with mild surprise. He does not look up. Hours later, Konami stretches his arms and surveys what he has learned. This nation is called Huzyards, founded by a great knight with the sole purpose of conquering the dungeon. It prizes chivalry above everything, which explains the spiky-haired youth from the road. Huzyards belongs to a 5-nation coalition called the Dungeon Alliance. All of them pointed at the same goal. The 5 nations, Huzyards, Eltrali, Vart, Laoravia, and Griard, encircle the dungeon like a ring of fortresses. They share a religion and a creed. The creed holds that if someone descends all 100 floors and reaches the deepest level, any wish will be granted. Konami's eye goes wide. Konami sits with his head in his hands and stares at the open book. If he wants to go home, he has to reach floor 100. He has to do all of that again, everything he just survived, 99 more times. The books also mention nothing about status menus or item inventories, which means not everyone has them. He closes his eyes and thinks about Hitaki. Konami sells his magic gems at a shop, trading 20 of them for 20 copper coins. The shopkeeper asks for a certificate, then settles for a thumbprint. When the man asks where Konami is from, Konami answers without hesitation, a country called Fania, very far away. He is glad he went to the library. The shopkeeper is startled by the name Fania, and Konami's pulse spikes before the man admits he only knows where it sits on a map. Konami keeps his expression steady. When he asks about lodging, the shopkeeper shakes his head. Huzyards is expensive, everything in it, and 20 copper coins will not last. The shopkeeper lays it out plainly. Huzyards is a knightly aristocracy where people stroll around spending gold, and Konami's pockets are too shallow to survive here, let alone explore the dungeon. He recommends heading east to a nation called Vart, less safe but far more practical for dungeon work. Konami stares at the counter. Konami accepts the reality. He is sleeping outdoors. He files away what he learned about ley lines, which transmit magical energy and apparently can detect people, meaning he needs to avoid them. He turns back to the shopkeeper and asks if the man would look at one more thing. Night settles over the city. Inside a warmly lit inn, Konami sits at a table with his head propped on one hand, completely spent. He sold the wolf's magic gem for silver, enough for a bed and 2 meals. He is grateful. He is also, underneath the gratitude, quietly devastated. The food arrives. Konami eats it and decides it is not good, not by any standard he grew up with. He finishes anyway, watching the other patrons, a man and a wolf-like creature laughing at another table. He feels the distance between himself and every person in this room. He sits alone and asks himself what he is doing here. He woke up in a dungeon. He nearly died. He looted the dead to survive. His fists close on his lap. This is a magic RPG world, and he did not choose to be in it, and somewhere on Earth his sister is alone in a hospital room. A group of older men at a nearby table try to draw him into conversation, one leaning over with a knowing look to tell him about the dungeon. Konami tells them to shut up. He walks to the stairs and climbs them, and behind him someone calls out after him in confusion. Each step up the staircase is accompanied by the same thought cycling through him: his world, his family, his sister, alone. He does not have parents, he has her. He reaches his room and locks the door and shouts at the walls, again and again, that this world can go to hell. When the shouting stops, the room is very quiet. The unknown skill fires once more, and the edge of his panic is filed smooth. Konami drops face first onto the hard bed. He lies there staring up, thinking that if he dies in this world it is game over, and then something taps at the window. He looks. A shadowy shape with thin appendages clings to the glass outside. The window shatters. Lastiara lands on the bed with a crash of glass and a shout of good morning, her silver hair everywhere, her grin enormous. Konami sits up and informs her, with remarkable composure, that this is his room. She ignores this entirely and tells him to get up because she has brought him something he will love. Lastiara informs him cheerfully that she broke in because he has not even leveled up yet, and she cannot allow that. She explains that she can read other people's levels naturally, a rare gift in this world. Konami's attention sharpens when she says the words "this world." He wonders if she knows something. Konami decides he cannot risk revealing he is from another world, not yet. He thanks Lastiara and asks her to leave. She reacts with genuine shock and then launches into an explanation of experience points and leveling up. He cuts her off. He already read about the church system at the library, and he knows where to go. Lastiara slumps to the floor, genuinely baffled that he is barely reacting to her. She cannot understand it. Then her expression shifts, and a wild light comes into her eyes. Her hand begins to glow with swirling magical energy. She announces she will simply do it by force. Konami twists away from her reaching hand and vaults off the bed in a single motion. He hits the door and yanks the handle. It does not move. Lastiara informs him pleasantly that she has sealed the room with magic and soundproofed it as well. She adds that she is impressed. His strength and agility are a fraction of her own, yet he moved like that. She finds it disquieting in a tone that suggests she means the opposite. Konami tells her to stay back. Konami draws a small knife and tells her one more step, and she is dead. Lastiara stares at him for a moment, then doubles over laughing. She points out that nobody who actually intends to kill someone phrases it like that. She tells him he is really intriguing. Konami decides that she is smaller than him, and if he can pin her down, he can make a run for it. He dashes across the room and reaches for her shoulder. Lastiara turns in the same instant and catches his arm, her grip like iron, her hair sweeping around her. She throws him. The floor comes up fast, and Konami hits it hard, the impact rattling through his whole body. He lies there twitching. Lastiara steps over him, picks up a book from somewhere, and settles onto the bed to begin what she calls the level-up aria. Lastiara holds the book open above Konami and extends her hand toward him, light gathering at her fingertips. She tells him to stop making a fuss, that all she is doing is leveling him up. She speaks her chant in a formal, archaic cadence, her voice steady and unhurried. She adds, almost as an afterthought, that she cannot let anything happen to her all-important candidate. Voices rise outside, calling for Lastiara with increasing urgency. She finishes the last line of the aria, wipes her brow, and announces that a crazed mob is looking for her, and she must be going. She runs for the hole in the ceiling she apparently came through, calls out a cheerful farewell, and is gone. Konami is still on the floor. The next morning, Konami finds himself spread-eagled on the debris-covered floor. His status screen tells the story. Aikawa Konami, level 4, HP and MP both significantly higher, 3 bonus points and 3 skill points waiting to be spent. He stares at the ceiling. He spent all his money to sleep on a cold floor, and he does not even want to think about the cost of the damage to the room. The town of Vart, member nation of the Dungeon Alliance, sits under a gray sky. Timber-framed buildings line narrow streets, and a figure on horseback moves away through the morning fog. Somewhere in the town, a handful of objects clatter onto a surface. A young man named Crow leans against a shop counter, casual and loose, exchanging a bag of coins with the bald shopkeeper. As he turns to leave, the shopkeeper mentions something worth noting. Lyon's Tavern has a new employee, someone with dungeon experience. In the shadows nearby, a hooded figure listens in on their conversation. Crow and a man with an eye patch sit together and trade gossip about the new hire. Got thrashed on the first floor, apparently, and now he is trying to manage the rowdy crowd at Lyon's. The new employee is working at a pace that suggests he has not stopped since the doors opened. He balances a tower of plates in one hand and 2 mugs in the other, his apron already stained, his headscarf crooked. He shouts back that of course he has not quit, he is still on the trial period. The manager's voice cuts across the noise from somewhere unseen, ordering him to take out the trash. Several days earlier, after Lastiara's visit left a hole in the ceiling and a stain on the floor, Konami slipped out through the roof before dawn, leaving behind what gold he could spare. Hoosyards was too expensive for him to survive in. He walked east to Vart as planned, arrived with no money and no plan, and found a hiring sign posted on a tavern wall. Back in the present, Crow throws his arm around the new employee's shoulders and makes a loud comment about the pay. A massive chef appears in the kitchen doorway with a cleaver and a shout. Crow startles, the employee stumbles, and the entire tray goes airborne. Konami calls on dimensional magic and casts dimension. Time seems to thicken around him. He moves through the frozen moment, plucking plates and mugs from the air one by one. He gets all but one. That last plate is falling too far away, and he cannot reach it in time. Konami lunges and catches the final plate with a clean snap of his wrist. The tavern erupts. Patrons pound the tables and shout, asking if he is an acrobat. He says he is not. They tell him to do it again. He declines, holding the tray steady, breathing quietly while the room cheers around him. Konami smiles faintly through the cheers. It is the dimension spell that makes all of this possible, he reflects. On the road from Hoosyards to Vart he experimented, learning to scale the spell with MP and read all the information within its field. Konami activates Analyze and the pub fills with floating data. Crow at level 13, others ranging from 8 to 12. He studies Crow's full stat window, noting the skills, Brawl and Verbal, class sword fighter. In this world, stats matter more than muscle. A level 13 is a level 13 regardless of how they look. Lastiara drifts through his thoughts, bright and strange. He knows about the gap between stat numbers and physical appearance because of his run-in with her. Now he stands in the middle of the tavern, holding a stack of trays and confronts the obvious truth. The dungeon is his only way home. He really, truly does not want to go back. He reminds himself he has to get out of this world fast, for Hitaki's sake and his own. He is just putting it off a little. He can be scared. But the pub is also full of dungeon delvers, and every night he works, he learns something about the floors below. He is gathering information. He is not hiding. Then a woman's voice cuts through the noise and orders everyone to stop. After the last patron leaves, the pub owner finds Konami sweeping up and asks how he liked his first shift. Konami says honestly that handling that many customers is tough, but yes, he liked it. The owner calls him cheeky and tells him he can handle tomorrow as well. The manager confirms. She barely had to teach him anything. The owner tells Konami he has passed the trial period, then walks out without ceremony. The manager, whose name is Lean, steps close and congratulates him warmly, asking if he needed the money. He did. When she asks where he is from, he says Fania. She has never heard of it and tells him it must be very far away. He agrees. Konami gives Lyon a cover story. He came chasing rumors of quick money in the dungeon, and the dungeon disagreed with him. Lyon laughs and tells him at least he still has his eyes and his arms. She says she is rooting for him. The pub owner reappears briefly to say he has an eye for character, and then he is gone again. They are letting Konami sleep in a corner of the pub. Lyon explains that the ley lines running through the town serve as a security network. Anyone who tries something suspicious gets detected and captured. Konami files this away. Later, alone in the dark, something trips his dimension spell. He expands the field outward and casts layered dimension, letting the sphere grow until it reaches the street outside. There is a girl sitting on the steps outside the pub. She is wearing a hooded cloak, and she turns her head slightly as the door creaks open. Konami steps out into the night and looks at her. Large, dark eyes look back at him from under the hood. He asks if she is awake. Kanami tells the girl they are closing up. She asks if she can stay where she is. He hesitates, and she takes his hesitation as permission and announces she will be staying put. He shouts that that is not what he meant, that it is dangerous out here for a girl. She cuts him off. She has no money, and she is staying where it is warm. Kanami locks the pub door and turns back to her, still puzzling over her calm refusal. She adds one more thing. She is not a girl. He stares. He decides there is no use puzzling over it in the dark, and he pulls up his analyze skill to look at her status menu. The stat window that appears stops him cold. The name reads Diablo Sith. Level 1, HP 52, MP 432. Under innate skills, Holy Magic, Divine Protection, Condom, Concentration, Elemental Magic, Overprotection, Longevity, Targeting. Every person in the pub had 1 or 2 skills at most. This girl, at level 1, has 8. Kanami stands in the dark and thinks it through. If stats determine everything in this world, and this girl leveled up normally, she would outstrip almost anyone. He reaches toward her, then pulls his hand back. Not yet. She is not an adventurer, and approaching her out of nowhere would make her suspicious. He has his dimension spell. He can wait for the right moment. The next night, a fight is already brewing inside the pub before the dinner rush is over. A man with a headband and a woman with long wavy hair are at a table with a third figure eating quietly between them. The man is gesturing at someone across the room, loud and contemptuous. Kanami watches from behind the bar. The girl from the steps is standing in the middle of the pub. She looks different from last night. Her hood is down, her posture is set, and she looks like she has already taken a few hits today. Her status window floats in Kanami's vision. Lev 1, Diablo Sith. The adventurers are mocking her for it. She shouts back that she knows she is low level, and she has confidence in her sword and her magic both. The woman with the wavy hair leans forward and poses the real question. At her age, simple housework would have brought her to level 3. How is she still at level 1? The man with the headband calls her a baby. The woman suggests she is either a spoiled rich kid or something is actively holding her back. The girl's face tightens with anger. Kanami thinks he was at level 1 until very recently. The man with the headband asks if she turned tail after getting hurt in the dungeon. The girl shouts at him to shut up. A brawl erupts. Kanami watches her face crumple under the laughter and makes a decision. He steps into the middle of the floor, bangs his tray, and tells everyone that if they are here to fool around, they can take it outside. A large figure in shadow steps forward and the adventurers quiet down fast. They file out, still laughing, one calling back that nobody is going to team up with a level 1. The girl adjusts her hood and walks out after them. Kanami watches the door close behind her and says nothing. He finds her in the alley behind the pub, sitting on a crate, her stomach audibly empty. He tells her he thought she might be here. She recognizes him as the pub worker and asks if he needs something. He holds out a bowl of extra food and asks if she wants it. Her eyes go wide. They eat together in the alley. Kanami tells her he felt bad for not stepping in sooner, and she tells him it was not his fault. She says the food is good. Kanami eats and notices her watching him sideways and wonders how to break the ice. He asks if she went to the dungeon. She says everybody in the pub already knows. He tells her he went in solo and got badly hurt on floor 1 and has not been back since. She taps her spoon against the bowl, thinking, then looks up and asks if he had no luck with companions. He says he has not had much. She nods slowly and then begins to ask him something. She asks if he wants to go into the dungeon with her. Kanami says sure, that they are around the same level anyway. She explodes with relief and gratitude, shouting a thank you loud enough to echo off the alley walls. He adds that he works nights, so daytime dives only. She says that is no problem at all and asks if they can start tomorrow. Kanami extends his hand and introduces himself as Siegfried Vizita, Sieg for short. A system message appears. Diablo Sith has joined the party. The girl takes his hand with a bright smile and introduces herself as Dia, no surname, just Dia. Kanami pulls on his new leather gloves and settles the white mantle around his shoulders. He uses Analyze on both pieces of equipment to confirm they are sound. His status screen shows HP at 151, his bonus points already allocated to health. He grips his sword hilt and thinks, this time will be different. He is still terrified. Kanami looks up at the sky and thinks, this time. Outside a church, a crowd kneels while a priest speaks from a low platform. Among the kneeling figures is Dia, her head bowed. They meet on the path in the morning. Dia tells him she checked to see if she had leveled up overnight, but she has not. Konami reads her status through Analyze, HP at 39 out of 52, MP at 431, EXP at 89 out of 100. Class, Sword Fighter. Condition, Protection. She is one fight away from leveling up. Konami watches Dia walk ahead of him and turns over what he knows. Her magic stat is 23.25. That is extraordinary. He also notices she did not react at all to the name Siegfried Visita, which means she is not from Earth. He chose that name specifically because anyone from home would recognize it as a signal. He thinks about how ridiculous the name sounds and decides he still likes it. But Dia said she has no surname, and her status menu says otherwise. Diablo Sith. Either the menus have some hidden logic, or something is holding her back, just as the woman at the pub said. Konami decides not to push it. He has enough problems. He is about to think of Hitaki when Dia shouts his name. Dia pouts and demands to know if he was listening. He apologizes and says he is just nervous about going back to the dungeon. She softens. She says she gets it, that he got hurt badly last time. Dia flexes her arm and tells him not to worry because she is confident with a sword. He points out that the plan is for him to be in front while she uses her magic, at least for this dive. She protests that once she levels up, she is absolutely using the sword. He agrees carefully and thinks to himself that she should really just focus on magic. He does not say this out loud. The tunnel leading into the dungeon is long and dark, ribbed with pale stone arches, a bright opening waiting at the far end. Two small figures walk toward it. Konami steps onto the dungeon floor and thinks, "Here I am again, back on this shadowy path to hell." He casts Dimension, and the spell expands outward with a deep resonant pulse. He has spent the days on the road from Whose Yards practicing, learning to feel the information the spell returns. His equipment is solid. His items are stocked. He has a talented companion. He clenches his fist. He is still afraid. Dia pulls out a hand-drawn map and starts to show him, but Konami's layered dimension field catches something moving through the tunnel wall ahead. He tells her there is a monster not far ahead. She quickly hides the map behind her back and says it was nothing, definitely nothing. A mandibeetle, rank 6, stands on the stone floor, a massive insectoid creature with enormous mandibles and compound eyes that catch the dungeon light. Dia goes quiet and still. Konami checks the field. The creature is alone. He shouts for Dia to move. Konami charges. As he runs, he recalls a conversation at the pub. A man with a headband told him magic is all in how you visualize it, that the spell comes out the way you picture it. Konami thinks about his dimension spell and pictures it specialized for battle, a net drawn tight around a single target. He calls out dimension, and then calculash in the same breath, and the field collapses inward around the mandibeetle, precise and focused. He can track every shift of the creature's weight, every beat of its wings. He moves through its attacks and strikes back, again and again. The tighter field sacrifices range for depth. He can feel the mandibeetle's movements with a clarity that borders on prediction. He drives his sword into the joint of its mandible and hears the shell crack. The creature shrieks. Konami checks his stats mid-fight and realizes his speed has climbed to 5.05. The mandibeetle seems slow now. He is about to press the advantage when Dia's voice cuts across the tunnel. She is firing. He looks back. Dia stands at the center of a blinding eruption of white light and fire, preparing her spell, Flame Arrow. On their way to the dungeon, Konami and Dia were discussing their capabilities. Dia mentions her spell Flame Arrow. She says it is the only one she has right now. He asks if the difficulty of casting it alone is why she needed a companion. She goes quiet, then explains that Flame Arrow is a beginner spell, essentially just magic with some heat in it. Back in the dungeon, she straightens, extends her arm, and her expression goes fierce with focus. Konami thinks to himself, this is more than just a puff of heat. This one will melt rock. Dia shouts the spell name, and a laser tears across the dungeon. Not a puff of heat, a beam. It crosses the full width of the tunnel and strikes the monster, a large winged beetle, and the creature shrieks as the light cuts through it. Konami and Dia stand in the aftermath, both of them wide-eyed. Dia looks at the space where the monster was and says she killed it, that it was almost too easy. Dia raises her fist and cheers. She turns to Konami and tells him it is all thanks to him. He says congratulations, a little overwhelmed. She tells him to keep going. He agrees. He is thinking about her magic stat, 23.25, and the elemental magic skill at 2.09, and what those numbers just did to a rank 6 creature with a beginner spell. Dia laughs and bounces on her heels, and Konami watches her and feels something settle in his chest. With her beside him, he thinks, they can aim for the deepest level. Any wish will be granted. He is going to get home. Deep in the dungeon's first floor, Dia raises her arm and unleashes a flame arrow, and the bolt of light tears through a winged creature in a burst of heat. Konami charges through the darkness beside her, sword drawn, cutting down whatever gets close. She fires again, then again, each spell blazing out of her with the same ferocity as the last. Konami holds a small magic gem, turning it in his gloved hand while Dia catches her breath behind him. He marvels inwardly at her endurance. She is firing off massive spells, one after another, without any sign of exhaustion. For a beginner-level spell, the raw power she packs into each shot is extraordinary. The combination of low cost and devastating output is, he admits to himself, a frightening thing. With her at his side, reaching the deepest level no longer feels impossible. Dia calls out to him, and he answers simply, telling her she is absolutely shredding the dungeon. Konami quickly walks back his praise, telling Dia the dungeon is not easy by any stretch. Plenty of adventurers have died on the very first floor. They are the exception, not the rule. Dia lights up, asking if that means they are just really strong. Konami confirms it, adding that she also has a genuine talent for magic. She reacts with a flash of surprise and pride. Privately, Konami notes that her spells hit far too hard for a level 1 fighter. He decides not to praise her too much. He cannot afford to let her think she does not need him. Konami tells Dia their compatibility has even more to do with their success than raw strength alone. He explains that his magic is good at detecting enemies from far away, which is why the monsters have never managed to get the drop on them. Dia's eyes go wide with recognition. She recalls how he has been finding monster after monster in the pitch dark, from distances she could never have managed alone. Konami lays out the full picture. He spots them first, positions them where Dia can fire clean shots, and makes sure nothing gets close enough to interrupt her casting. They have been operating inside a bubble of safety that he has been quietly maintaining all along. Konami flicks a small crystal into the air and tells Dia that in some cases he can even guide her to snipe targets she cannot see. She goes quiet for a moment, then admits that when she fought alone, she never had time to cast spells before the monsters were already on top of her. Konami tells her plainly that he has been covering for her, buying her the seconds she needs to fling her fire. Together, he says, they cannot lose. Then Dia's eyes sharpen and she asks the question he has been dreading. How exactly is he detecting them? She has never heard of magic that works like that. Konami freezes. 2 translucent status windows hang in the air between Konami and Dia, one bearing his name and one bearing hers. He runs through the truth in his head. He is using both his dimensional magic and his menu sight to track every creature in the dark. But neither ability has ever come up in conversation with anyone in this world. If they are powers only he possesses, advertising them would be a mistake. He cannot risk letting personal information slip. Before he can say anything, Dia holds up her hands and apologizes for prying, insisting she was only curious. Konami smiles nervously and tells her it is a secret technique from his homeland that he cannot explain in detail, but that it works. Dia accepts the explanation easily, calling it a rare skill and saying she envies him. Konami exhales with relief. He reflects that it is normal for adventurers to keep their advantages to themselves. Then he comes clean about one real limitation. The constant magic use drains his MP fast, and he actually gets more worn out than she does. Dia nods, putting it together. He is using magic the whole time, and when a fight starts, he has to lure monsters into position on top of that. Konami quietly notes that he has successfully made her feel indebted to him. He tells her he will give her warning before he runs low, which will probably be soon. Dia mentions she has a shift at the pub anyway, and they agree to wrap up. Dia wants to push a little further, and Konami agrees. He has already asked around the pub about enemy placement in the area ahead. Dia grins and calls him predictably prepared. Before they move, Konami leans in close and delivers one firm instruction. Watch where she aims. Be precise. Do not fire carelessly. Dia waves him off, saying he has already told her. Then the two of them plunge back into the dark, Konami's sword flashing and Dia's magic blazing behind him. Konami finally calls a halt, breathing hard. He cannot sustain his magic much longer. He tells Dia he is heading out and asks what she wants to do. Privately, he is begging her to say she is coming too. Dia hesitates, and he can see her mind working through the idea of continuing alone. He shuts it down immediately, pointing out that without his detection magic she would be going in blind. She concedes the point, though she clearly finds it painful. Konami stares at her, genuinely baffled by how close she came to seriously considering it. Konami explains that he was weaving magic into his sword work the entire time, sharpening his senses with it, which is why he is now completely out of MP. Dia stares at him. She thought he was a swordsman. She had assumed his speed came from his body, not his magic. The revelation that he has been a magic user first, this whole time, leaves her rattled. Konami tells her plainly that without MP he is just a liability, and he hopes she believes the explanation he has given her. Konami thinks through the logic with cold clarity. Without his magic, every fight would take longer and cost more stamina. More time in the dungeon means more chances for something to go wrong, and he cannot let anything threaten his path to the deepest level. A memory surfaces, Alti's voice, sharp and mocking, warning him that at level 1 a stiff breeze could take him out. He had dismissed her at the time. Now staring at his own empty MP bar, he wonders if she might have had a point after all. He shoves the thought aside. He cannot let Dia become a liability either. Konami tells Dia he will escort her outside and then return to the dungeon alone. Dia spins around, demanding to know if he is serious about going deeper by himself. He says yes. She begins stretching her arms over her head, insisting that she has time and has been going it alone until today. Konami cuts her off with a single question. How many monsters has she actually beaten solo before today? Dia freezes mid-stretch, arms still raised, face going red. Konami holds the question in the air between them, his expression darkening. Dia mumbles that she has won before. Then slowly she holds up a single finger. 1. Konami stares at her for a long moment, then buries his face in his hand. Konami pleads with her not to go back in alone, telling her it would worry him sick. Dia fires back that she managed to beat plenty of monsters today, and insists she has a feel for it now. Konami unleashes a rapid-fire rebuttal. She took those down with her magic, not her sword. She cannot cast spells without him there to buy her time. Her blade has not been effective against these creatures on its own. Dia shouts that she has her sword, and Konami shouts back that her sword is not working on them. He is nearly at the end of his patience, wondering if he needs to recite her own stats back to her. Dia collapses face down on the cave floor, and Konami stands over her, catching his breath. He sits on a nearby rock and stares at the ceiling, thinking about how desperately he needs power and money, and how quickly he needs both. When he speaks again, his voice is flat. She can swing that sword all day, and it will not put down a single monster. He would not mind if she could cast spells independently, but that is not where she is right now. Dia pushes herself off the ground, jaw set. She refuses to rely on magic. She wants to get stronger with the blade. That is why she wants to train with it. Konami asks the obvious question. If it is money and power she wants, why not just focus on her magic? She is more than capable of earning from it. Dia goes quiet, her expression clouding over. Memories surface behind her eyes. A man and a woman watching a small girl play at sword fighting, their faces full of pride. A man kneeling down to offer her proper training, saying she might even outclass him someday. The people who believed in her before she had anything to show them. She looks up at Konami, her voice tight. Dia declares it plainly. She refuses to use anything but the sword. Konami goes quiet. He can see that this is not a strategic choice. It is something older and deeper than strategy, driven by emotion he cannot argue against. He does not think he can talk her out of it, and he is not sure it would be right to try. The two of them stand in the dark, side by side, and the silence settles around them. Konami crouches beside Dia and asks once more, "No matter what?" She repeats it back to him. "No matter what." He glances at her status window, which he can see clearly through his menu sight. Her EXP has already blown past the threshold for leveling up. He stands, tells her he will not stop her, and says having options never hurts. Dia looks up in surprise. He adds that he wants her fully prepared before they go back in, so they are leaving for now. She agrees, still slightly stunned that he came around at all. Dia falls into step beside him and admits she did not actually think she would get him on board. She asks how bad a sword fighter he is, genuinely curious. Konami tells her simply that he understands how she feels. She lights up in disbelief. He thinks privately about his old habit of always choosing the sword fighter class in games. It is the protagonist's role. Everyone wants to be the hero. In truth, he just needs Dia to keep fighting with her magic, and pushing her directly would only push her away. He cannot let his only ticket home slip out of his hands. Dia glances at him with something warm in her eyes, thinking that Sieg is into it too. Dia stops and turns to him, and with a soft blush she says thank you. The warmth in her smile hits Konami somewhere unexpected, a sudden twinge in his chest that he does not have a name for. He blinks, mutters an agreement, and looks away. Dia pats herself down briskly and announces it is time to head back. Konami follows, one hand pressed briefly to his chest, still wondering what that was. As they walk, Dia asks how they are going to divide the magic gems they collected. Konami says 50-50, the standard split he has heard about from the pub regulars. He offers to give her more since she is more worn out, but Dia cuts him off. Keep it simple, she says. 50-50, no arguments. Konami privately wishes she would take a bigger share, but accepts that this is the right call for now. He shifts to practical advice, telling her to visit a church once they are back outside. She is almost certainly leveled up. He starts in on her equipment next, and Dia follows along with a slightly glazed expression. Konami catches himself lecturing and wonders if he is being too pushy. Dia chatters back at him in a blur of noise, and he summarizes her instructions back to her in a murmur. He thinks about what she actually is to him, a tool, potentially even a decoy if things get desperate. But she is also the first companion he has found in this world, and that makes everything more complicated. He lets the thought go. Standing at the mouth of the dark cave, he admits to himself that today's two-person dungeon dive was, in spite of everything, a bit fun. Night has settled over the city. Inside the pub, Konami stifles a yawn behind his headscarf and immediately gets called out for it by a woman sitting at a table. A large man with horns slams his mug down and demands more booze. Konami snaps to attention and hurries to serve them. As he moves past, he takes a quick glance at their status windows. Level 12, level 11. He notes it with a quiet thought. Them too. Konami's own status window hovers in his mind. Level 4, nearly at 5 after just 2 dungeon dives. From what he has observed, adults in their 30s are only reaching around level 10. He and Dia are moving at a pace that should let them catch up in under a year, and yet that is still too slow. He stares out through the pub window at the dark street beyond. He is aiming for the 100th floor. He has to push far beyond what any ordinary adventurer manages. Konami stands framed by the pub window, his reflection staring back at him from the dark glass. The city hums quietly outside. He knows what he has to figure out. The next day at the pub, a coworker with light hair and freckles catches Konami muttering to himself and asks what he has to figure out. He tells her he has started dungeon diving again. She raises an eyebrow, reminding him he said he hit a wall. Then she softens, telling him not to worry about the business. He can put his dream first. The pub will go on. She asks again what it is he needs to figure out. Before he can answer, a spiky-haired man materializes behind him without a sound. Crow yanks Konami into a side hug and announces that dungeon talk is his department. Sieg laughs and admits that Crow does know the dungeon, if nothing else. Crow protests the qualifier. Sieg teases him about catching up to some figure of legend he chased in his youth, and Crow waves it off as ancient history. He turns to Konami and asks what is on his mind. Konami tells him he wanted to ask about the stronger monsters, and specifically about the bosses on the lower floors. Crow's expression sharpens. He confirms the term, bosses. He slaps Konami on the back, hard enough to make him stagger, and says that wanting to know about them is the right instinct. Sieg calls from across the room not to take too long. Crow settles in and admits there are not many bosses on the first floor, so he cannot help much there. But he tells Konami to be careful, because the ones he really needs to watch out for are something else entirely. Crow's voice drops. He calls them the Guardians, mega bosses that appear on the 10th and 20th floors, and that are said to prowl throughout the dungeon besides. Konami asks if the 10th floor means he has time before he has to worry about them. Crow shakes his head. They are smart and they roam. If Konami ever bumps into one, he needs to run immediately. Not even the strongest delvers have managed to beat them. Konami promises he will run. Crow adds that encounters with Guardians are so rare he can barely remember the last one, and apologizes for scaring him. Konami thanks him sincerely. It was all very useful. Crow's eyes light up and he launches into a new topic. The strongest adventurer in the entire alliance, a man named Glenn. Konami leans in, curious. Then something heavy slams down onto the pub counter with a crack, and a large hand points at both of them. The conversation is over. Back in the dungeon the next day, Dia reacts to Konami's suggestion with barely contained delight. Fighting a boss? She is absolutely in. Konami explains his reasoning. Given how strong they are together, higher rank monsters would be more rewarding, and yesterday's sweep had been so one-sided he worried it was boring for her. Dia insists it was not boring at all, and demands they go for a boss immediately. They move deeper into the dark, and Konami's narration trails off mid-thought as a shadow falls across the tunnel ahead. They step out of the tunnel and stop. Before them stretches a vast underground forest. Enormous white trees twisting up into a ceiling so high it disappears into haze. Shafts of pale light filtering down through a canopy that should not exist this far underground. Konami and Dia are tiny figures at the edge of it, dwarfed by the scale. Dia's mouth falls open. She breathes that it is amazing. Konami says nothing. Konami recognizes the forest area from Crow's description, the depths of the first floor, where it is easy to forget you are underground at all. Dia calls his name. He closes his eyes and reaches out with his dimension skill, the world around him resolving into a map of magical signatures. Crow's warning surfaces in his memory. Be careful in the part with plants growing everywhere. The thing is right by the entrance. High in the canopy, hanging from an enormous papery nest, is the Forest Queen, a massive striped insect, rank 12, surrounded by a cloud of smaller creatures. Konami's eye tracks it. He tells Dia he sees it. She looks confused, scanning the trees, unable to find what he is looking at. He tells her they have reached their destination and that it is time to snipe the area's boss. Dia squints into the canopy, still searching. Dia spins toward him and demands to know what he means by sniping it. Konami says he means exactly that. She sputters that she has heard it is possible, but surely it cannot be that simple. He tells her it is okay that she can do it. He lays out the plan. He will point at the target. She fires full force in that direction. He wants to collect the drops from the smaller ones too, so they will hit those the same way. If anything closes the distance, he takes the front and she takes the back, just as they have been doing. Any questions? Dia stares at him, then slowly shakes her head. Dia admits that everything Konami has told her up to now has been right on the mark, so she is willing to trust him, even if her nerves are getting the better of her. He tells her there is no need to be anxious. If everything goes to plan, it will be straightforward. He reaches over and takes hold of her shoulder, guiding her into position in the clearing. Dia startles at the contact. Konami focuses his eyes on the canopy above, already calculating the angle. Konami goes still, hand pressed to his forehead, eyes closed as his dimension skill extends outward through the forest. Dia peers at him from behind a tree, watching the strange stillness of his detection technique. She notes privately that for a spell meant to find things, it leaves him remarkably unaware of his immediate surroundings. Then his hand shoots out and grabs her arm. She gasps an apology before she even knows what she is apologizing for. He steps behind her, lifts her arm and sights along it like a compass needle. Right there, he says. Konami holds Dia steady, his voice low and certain. He tells her not to worry about anything in the way. Her magic cannot be blocked by most things. If anything shifts, he will adjust for her. He watches through his dimension skill as the Forest Queen hangs motionless in its nest. He tells her the target is not moving, and she can fire when ready. Dia steadies herself, breathes, and calls out her spell. A beam of fire tears through the forest like a line drawn by a god, shattering branches and incinerating the nest in a cascade of light. When the smoke clears, the Forest Queen and every smaller creature around it are gone. Konami says simply, "And that is that." Dia stares at the devastated canopy, not quite believing what just happened. Konami walks forward to collect the item drops, telling Dia she took down the boss and all the smaller ones in a single shot, just as he expected. Dia looks at her own hands, still processing it. He tells her they will hit several more areas the same way. She follows, muttering that this is not quite the dungeon dive she had pictured in her head. Konami acknowledges it. This is grinding, not a proper dive. But if his goal is clearing the dungeon, this is the safest and most efficient path to the deepest level. New titles unlock in the corner of his vision. He keeps moving. They emerge from the dungeon into the afternoon light, and Dia is soaking wet, water dripping from her hair and clothes, her expression thunderous. Konami walks beside her in silence. She erupts, cursing the bugs that never stopped coming. Konami tells her calmly that is exactly why he cut the dive short. He saw how it happened. The ground was damp, she charged forward anyway, and she went face first into a puddle with insects swarming around her. Dia lets out a wordless shout of humiliation. Konami holds out a towel. She says she will be fine, it will dry as they walk. He insists, telling her he cannot have her catching cold. Besides, he adds. Konami points out quietly that her wet clothes are sticking to her. Dia looks down, goes red from her collar to her ears, and snatches the towel out of his hand. She wraps herself in it immediately, pulling it tight around her shoulders. Konami suggests they stop at the market booths nearby. They have earned enough today to buy something new, and it would be a good use of the money. The outdoor market is a dense stretch of stalls run by craftspeople of every kind, selling things Konami has never seen in any shop. He moves through it slowly, scanning each table. There might be lucky finds here. His eye catches something small, a hair clip set with a light-aligned magic gem, delicate metalwork framing a pale stone. Its description reads clearly in his menu site. It slightly boosts the user's magic power. The merchant behind the stall has an eye patch and a wide smile. Konami tells him he will take the hair clip. The merchant is delighted. Dia stands off to the side, watching the transaction with her arms crossed in the towel. Konami turns to Dia with a calm smile and suggests she try it on and see how it looks. She stares at him, then at the clip, then reluctantly fastens it into her hair. She looks at him sideways and asks if it looks weird on her. It does not. The merchant asks what brings a pair like them to the dungeon. Dia straightens up and answers without hesitation. Diving the dungeon is the best route to money and renown. It is the ideal place to get rich fast. And how is she supposed to resist that? Dia keeps going, her voice rising with conviction. She wants everyone to acknowledge her for who she is. She wants to be seen as herself, not as what others expect her to be. She wants to live her life as Dia. The merchant listens with a quiet expression. Konami watches from the side, something in his chest pulling tight. The merchant smiles gently and says it was nice to hear. Then a sharp pain cuts through Konami without warning, and he presses a hand to his side. He tells Dia he needs to head home early, keeping his voice steady. She looks at him, confused, but he is already turning to go. Konami walks alone through the city streets, his back to the world. Why is he dungeon diving? The answer is obvious. It has always been obvious. The faces of the people he has met gather around the edges of his thoughts. Dia, Crow, the merchant from the market. He has been treating this world like a game, and the people in it like characters placed there for his convenience. But they are not. Dia has her own dreams and her own pain. Crow has his legend he never caught. The merchant has her own forgotten reasons for starting. Each of them is living a life just as full as anyone in his own world. The realization sits in him like a weight. Konami crumples, hunching over in the middle of an empty street. Dark, jagged marks spread across his skin like cracks in stone, and the pain that comes with them is real and immediate. He tries to finish the thought. At this rate, he is the one who is. A skill activates in the dark behind his eyes, its name obscured, its function clinical. It stabilizes the user's mental state in exchange for some of their emotion. His confusion stat ticks upward by 1 full point. A white silhouette kneels in the void, sword held across its back, perfectly still. Konami finds himself at a church as evening falls, standing outside the tall stone doors and listening to the service within. He goes inside. A man with short hair sits in prayer. A young woman with long rabbit-like ears kneels nearby, her head bowed. Konami moves down the aisle slowly, watching them. At the end of the day, the residents of any world are living, breathing people, that explorer, that semaphore woman. Their lives are just as rich as those of anyone in his own world. Konami stands in the church and tells himself plainly, there are no NPCs here. He does not lose anything by accepting that. He can learn from watching their expressions, their emotions. His status window floats at the edge of his vision. Confusion, 5.31. He reads it, then looks away. It was a lapse in judgment earlier, brought on by disorientation. He is just one person among many. He can move forward from here. Konami lets himself smile, just slightly. Memories of the past few days move through him. The market, the pub, Dia's face when she took down the Forest Queen. Then the embarrassment hits him all at once and he staggers into an alleyway, clutching his head. He was staring at Dia. Dia, who insists he is a boy. Konami repeats it to himself firmly. If Dia calls himself a boy, then he is one, even if he looks like a pretty girl from every possible angle. A horse nearly tramples him. The rider shouts. Konami leaps aside. The horse-drawn carriage rolls away down the street, and Konami's eye catches something through the barred window at its back. A small figure huddled inside. He stares after it. Dia mentioned slaves earlier. He thinks about Dia's talent, the way it appeared seemingly from nowhere. Maybe someone in that carriage has the same kind of hidden potential. He could use another strong ally for the dungeon. He pulls his hood up, adjusts his sword, and follows the carriage. The carriage leads him to a narrow alley between tall stone buildings, lit by a single lamp. A man with a mustache speaks to several small figures near a doorway. A large shaggy animal stands in a nearby stall. Konami leans against the wall and takes it in, not as squalid as he expected. He watches and thinks. A man with short light hair and a dark vest spots Konami standing alone in the alley and approaches with a polite greeting, asking what business he has at this hour. Konami takes the direct approach, pressing a small pouch into the man's hand and explaining that he just wants to look around. He says the place was recommended to him. The vested man considers this, then smiles and gestures for him to follow. Konami exhales. He pulled it off. Inside the building, Konami stops. A young girl with very long dark hair stands in a doorway ahead of him, looking toward him with calm, dark eyes. His chest seizes. For one disorienting moment he thinks of Hitaki. He clutches his head. It cannot be her. It is impossible. He forces himself to focus. That is just the girl he glimpsed through the carriage window. Nothing more. A status window materializes in Konami's vision over the girl. Maria de Sutras, level 3, class listed as slave. She has 3 skills. Her abilities a touch above average. He stares at the screen, then at her. She looks up at him and introduces herself in a quiet, careful voice. Her name is Maria. Konami tells her his name is Sieg. The word is barely out of his mouth before the vested man shouts for someone to take the slave inside. A man grabs Maria by the arm and leads her away. She looks back over her shoulder as she goes, her eyes finding Konami's for just a moment before the darkness swallows her. The vested man begins to apologize and offer an explanation, but Konami cuts him off. He has found out what he needed to know, and he will leave it at that for today. The man bows and says they look forward to his next visit. Konami walks out into the night, pulling his hood up. His real name slipped out in there. That was careless. He turns the encounter over in his mind. That girl reminded him of Hitaki somehow. Konami tells himself to stop thinking about Hitaki, calm down. But when her image surfaces, he cannot sit still. He starts wanting to reach the deepest floor right now, tonight, by any means necessary. He cannot operate like that. For the time being, he is just Siegfried Vizita, a resident of this world. He works his pub shift in a blur of noise and motion, and when it is over, he lies on his back in the dark of his room and stares at the ceiling. Do not think. Forget. Just for now. Sleep takes him somewhere else entirely. A modern city skyline, glass towers against a gray sky, a television screen in a familiar room. A news anchor delivers a report in a measured voice. 2 married entertainers, the Aikawa, have been arrested. A younger Konami in a school uniform stares at the screen. The charge is drug possession and trafficking. Konami sits on the couch with the remote in his hand, not moving. Then he is hunching forward, head in his hands. The dream shifts. A dim room, a bed, a girl with long dark hair lying still in the low light. Konami's voice, barely above a whisper, Hitaki? Something massive and dark rises behind him. A horned, armored figure, enormous, its presence filling the room. Before Konami can turn, a blade drives through his chest from behind. Blood. He falls backward. The armored figure looks down at him with a jagged, toothsome grin and tells him it will not be long now. Soon. Then it says what sounds almost like encouragement. He has to get through this. Konami wakes up with a gasp, clutching his chest. Just a dream. A strange one. He sits on the edge of his bed, breathing. The place where Hitaki was sleeping in that dream stays with him. A girl's voice calls down from above. She asks why he is still here, and whether he forgot it is a holiday. Sun Celebration Day. Konami blinks, then thanks her loudly and rushes out the door. He finds Dia sitting on a stone wall outside a church, reading a book in the morning light. Konami jogs up and apologizes for keeping her waiting. Dia looks up and says it is fine, she was just reading. He asks if she likes hero stories. She smiles and says she stumbled on the book yesterday and got pulled in. She would love to be like them one day. Dia hops off the wall and announces she almost forgot to tell him. She asked the priest earlier, and she is level 6 now. Konami tells her calmly that he is also level 6. Dia's eyes go wide, then she admits that makes sense given everything. Konami looks at his own status screen and lingers on one detail. His class field is blank. Dia's reads sword fighter. His reads nothing. He is not sure what that means, but he suspects it might be holding him back. No one at the pub had any answers. Dia leans toward him with a careful expression and asks if now that she is level 6, she might be allowed to show off her sword skills in the dungeon. Konami says okay. She starts to launch into her prepared argument before she realizes he already agreed. She stares at him, then shouts in disbelief. He confirms it. On the early floors, sure. Her stats are high enough that she should be fine as long as he backs her up. He overheard an adventurer at the pub talking about something on the 5th floor, and he thinks it is worth investigating. Dia launches herself at him and wraps her arms around him, nearly lifting him off the ground. Konami shoves her off, flustered, insisting it is nothing, that he just figures it will not be a problem until around the 5th floor. Dia laughs and apologizes, still grinning. He hands her the robe he borrowed from her and she takes it, then pumps her fist in the air. Today they are going to dive real deep. Konami sighs and follows her toward the dungeon entrance. 4th floor, depths. The forest here is dense and tangled, the trees thick enough to swallow sound. Konami stands at the edge of it, scanning ahead. Dia grips her sword with both hands, her posture shifting into something focused and ready. Then she spots it, a skyfish, a creature like a flying fish with a single enormous eye and teeth like broken glass, drifting through the air ahead of them. Dia lunges, shouting that the first strike wins. The skyfish is faster than it looks. It twists away from Dia's first swing, its eye fixing on her with cold intelligence, and strikes back. She parries, but the impact rattles her. Konami watches the exchange from a step behind, reading the creature's movement patterns. Dia's technique is raw, but her reflexes are sharp. He decides it is time to add some applied magic to the equation. Konami reaches inward and begins to shape the spell. Visualization is the key. Trace the form sharply in the mind and bring it to completion. Ice. A long, jagged crystalline shaft materializes in his hands with a sound like shattering glass, cold radiating off it in waves. He holds it up and calls out to Dia to fall back half a pace. She glances back in surprise, then moves. Konami calls out his dimension skill and fires. The ice arrow crosses the distance in a heartbeat, a streak of cold light that leaves a frost trail in the air behind it. Dia barely has time to register it before the arrow punches through the skyfish's body with a wet crack. The creature reels, its flight pattern breaking apart. Dia watches it happen with wide eyes. He hit it. He actually hit it. Dia does not hesitate. She brings her sword down in a decisive arc, and the skyfish splits apart under the blow, its body dissolving into light and fragments. She stands in the aftermath, breathing hard, sword still raised. Then she turns around with a shout. She did it. She took it down, with a sword. Konami steps forward and offers his congratulations. Dia beams. Dia holds her sword up and grins, saying it is just like the hero from the book she was reading. Konami looks at the blade more carefully. It is old and worn, but clearly well made. His menu sight fills in the details. The treasured blade of the Erase clan, Attack 5, adds 20% of the user's ability to each strike. He touches his chin. A family weapon, he wonders about its history. Before he can ask, Dia spins around with a bright smile and tells him to get moving. They have more dungeon to cover. The attack comes without warning. A giant scorpion crashes through the undergrowth, claws snapping, stinger arcing toward Dia. Konami shoves her out of the path of the strike and shouts her name. The scorpion's claw slams into the ground where they had been standing. Konami rolls clear and comes up moving, already reading the creature's rhythm through his dimension skill. It swings again. He ducks under it and drives his sword into the joint between the claw and the body. The scorpion shudders. He does not give it time to recover. A second strike finds the head, and the creature dissolves into light. Konami reaches down and offers Dia a hand. She takes it, pulling herself up and asking if he is all right. He tells her it was a close one, then asks the same of her. She nods, then goes quiet. Before either of them can say more, a voice reaches them from somewhere in the trees. Konami and Dia look up. A group of adventurers stands nearby, watching them with expressions that range from smug to hostile. Dia's eyes narrow. She recognizes them. Something drips from the cave ceiling above the staircase chamber, a viscous, translucent substance that gathers itself into a single blob-like shape with a dim eye-like spot at its center, a hangshade. Before it can drop, a burst of light detonates against it and blasts it into dark fragments. Konami stands in the aftermath, expression neutral. Another one down, he says. On to the next. Dia agrees, still startled. Somewhere further back in the chamber, a strangled scream echoes off the stone. Dia asks quietly if Konami is mad at her. He tells her he is not, but he wishes she would think before she acted. She winces and apologizes. He tells her this little duel is meaningless and they should crush it and move on. He clenches his fist. Dia looks up at him with wide, luminous eyes. In the forest above, the argument with the rival adventurers has escalated. The man with the headband stands on a ledge above Konami and Dia, looking down with a smug expression. He points out that letting your guard down in the dungeon is a serious lapse. Dia shakes her fist and threatens to fight him right there. He declines, saying he does not pick on the weak. Dia erupts. Konami stands beside her, thinking privately that a public brawl near the main path would draw exactly the wrong kind of attention. The man and the woman with him turn to leave, and Dia shouts after them that they are just running away. The man stops. He says they are on a guild quest and cannot brawl in public, but if she wants to settle this, he has a proposal. They compete through the quest itself. Dia stares at him, turning the idea over. The man explains. Their guild job is to cull hangshades, creatures that are skilled at hiding in shadows, and that the government periodically hires competent explorers to thin out. He proposes a simple contest to see who can fell the most. Dia spits on the ground and accepts without hesitation. Konami watches from behind her, thinking it might actually be fine. It might even be fun. The man hops down from the ledge and asks what the stakes are. He points out that money would be a reasonable wager, but he suspects Dia does not have a coin to her name. Dia confirms it with a grimace. The man's expression shifts into something calculating. He taps Dia on the chest with one finger and lays out his terms. If she loses, she makes them money however she can, up to and including selling her body. He says she is vulgar and unruly, but she has a pretty face, so she will fetch a good price. Dia's expression goes white-hot. She accepts and demands that if she wins, she gets a tearful apology and every coin he is carrying. Konami steps in and tells Dia to hold on. A friendly bet is one thing, but putting herself on the line is a different matter entirely. The man with the headband tells him to butt out. Dia tells him this can just be her fight. Konami turns to face her, and his expression goes very still and very dark. He lays it out in full. These people came prepared for this exact quest. They have the right equipment, the right experience, and the guild's seal of approval. Dia has never done this before. She is going in blind against their specialty, and she is wagering her own body. He tells her she is being stupid, very stupid. Dia stares up at him, pale and sweating. Konami finishes with the sharpest point. The dumbest thing of all is that she did not consult him first. Without him, she has no shot at winning. Dia sputters. The man with the headband cuts in and says Konami might as well join the contest if he wants, since they want it to be fair. Konami starts to decline, then stops. Dia stands behind him, furious and silent, grinding her teeth. Konami agrees to participate on one condition. He holds up a finger and proposes a 1-hour time limit. Whoever culls the most hangshades in that window wins. The man with the headband looks surprised, then skeptical. He asks what happens if neither side gets one that quickly. Konami smiles and tells him that seems unlikely. Surely they are skilled enough to take down at least one in an hour. The man with the headband agrees through gritted teeth. But Konami raises one more point. What assurance do they have that the other side will actually honor the bet if they lose? The man waves it off, explaining that in this country you can declare an oath-sworn battle over a ley line and the country records it. Anyone who refuses to honor the terms afterward is treated as a criminal. Konami files the information away. The pub staff had clearly told everyone about his background, and now he knows this law too. Konami steps onto the ley line and says he is ready. The man with the headband drives his large sword into the ground beside the glowing stone path and begins the oath. He stakes his assets and his pride on the outcome. Dia draws her own sword. Konami speaks his half of the oath, staking all rights to his body on the duel. The words settle into the stone with a weight that feels binding. The man with the headband finishes his side of the oath with a confident smile. Dia holds her sword vertically before her face, jaw set, eyes burning. Konami stands behind her, watching both of them with a quiet, serious expression. Konami and Dia move through the cave system, the contest already underway. Dia apologizes for dragging him into it. He tells her he is the one who chose to help, so she has nothing to apologize for. He holds a small crystal up to the light, listening to the faint, unnerving sounds the dead hangshades make. He does not think the cries are summoning others, but the noise still puts him on edge. Dia grins and says she cannot wait to prove they are better. Then she adds that she wants them to acknowledge her worth. Konami starts to respond. 1 hour later, in the staircase chamber between floors 5 and 6, the two groups face each other across a wooden crate. On one side of the crate, a small pile of crystals. On the other, 11. The man with the headband and his companions stare at the larger pile. The spiky-haired youth shouts that it is impossible, that they must have cheated. Konami tells them calmly that they did take down 11, though he admits they were cheating, in a way. Dia pumps her fist and credits Konami loudly. He thinks at her to stop provoking them. The man with the headband's face goes red. He lunges. Konami and Dia jump back. Then something shifts in the shadows at the far end of the chamber, and Konami's eyes snap to it. The man with the headband draws himself up and declares the bet invalid. He will not accept losing to a level 1 brat. Dia shouts that he swore an oath on a ley line. He tells her he does not care. One less country to operate in is a small price to pay. They just need the two of them to disappear. Konami says to Dia quietly that this is exactly what he warned her about. There is no point trying to impress people like this. Dia reaches for her sword, ready to fight. Konami tells her to leave it to him. She insists she will fight too. He tells her no, that is okay, he can handle them. The man with the headband snarls and the spiky-haired youth breaks into a run beside him, both of them closing the distance fast. Konami parries the man's heavy sword with a sharp ring of steel, redirecting the force sideways, and sidesteps the spiky-haired youth's dagger strike in the same motion. Both attackers stumble past him, their momentum carrying them beyond where he was standing. He is already turning to face them again, calm and focused. The man with the headband stares back at him, thrown. He thinks, did this kid really get trounced on the first floor? Konami reads their status windows as they regroup. Arkan, level 8, and Saji, level 8. Both outrank him on paper. It does not matter. His dimensional magic gives him something no stat can replicate. He watches Arkan charge again and reads the exact angle of the swing before it arrives. He tells himself he has got this. Konami lets the first strike come in and deflects it just enough to open the second angle, the real attack, the one Arkan did not see coming. A double strike, the second hidden behind the first. Arkan staggers. Before he can recover, Konami is already past him, blade trailing a clean arc through the air. Saji drops from the ceiling. Konami's eye catches the movement a fraction of a second before the strike arrives. He spins, and the blade passes through empty air where he was. Arkan, watching from the side, thinks he is fast. Konami lands in a low stance and looks up at both of them, still composed. Saji swings horizontally and Konami ducks under it, spins, and comes up behind him in a single motion. He drives Saji to the ground and presses a blade to his throat. Arkan and the woman stand frozen in the background. The woman with curly hair says it is over. Konami tells Saji it certainly is. This is the end of the line. Konami tells them he does not want their money. What he wants is to never see them again. Promise him that, and they can walk away. Arkan's bluster collapses. He raises his hands and says they surrender. They will leave right now. Konami watches them go without a word. Konami sheaths his sword and exhales. His dimension spell carried him through, but there was a close call in there. He thinks of Lastiara's voice from what feels like another life, asking if he has numbers beyond his numbers. He looks down and finds a short sword left on the ground, probably dropped in the confusion. It is not like they will ever see those three again. He opens a spatial rift and tucks the sword inside. Then he turns to find Dia standing nearby, and she apologizes. He tells her it is fine. He was angry at them too. Dia looks down and says quietly that all she wanted was for them to acknowledge her. Konami tells her honestly that earning acceptance is a tall order. It is not that easy. He thinks privately that he is not even sure he fully accepts this world yet. Dia asks what they do now. He tells her he used up a lot of MP, so they should head back. A voice comes from behind them, low and smooth and wrong. It says it cannot have that. Konami and Dia both go still. The voice continues, apologizing for the fright, but insisting it cannot let them leave. Dia's face goes pale. Something tall and dark and dripping rises from the shadows at the far end of the chamber. It is massive. A spindly, towering figure of swirling darkness with long, thin limbs that drip like ink, and a circular head dominated by a vast white crescent grin. It hangs in the air above them as if gravity is a suggestion. It tells them that children like them are just too rare. It introduces itself, the sentinel of the 20th floor, Tita. It says it is a thrill to meet them. Tita's limbs spread outward until they fill the chamber, dripping darkness along the walls and floor. It says again that it cannot have them going back. Children like them are simply too rare. Konami stares up at it, sweat breaking out across his face. His mind catches on a single thought. What is a guardian doing in a place like this? The full scope of Tita unfolds above them. A constellation of dark orbs orbiting its central mass, the white crescent grin wide and patient, its presence filling the chamber like a held breath. Konami stares up at it, barely able to form the word. Dia stands at his side, frozen. Konami's memory fires. Krau's warning, delivered over drinks in the pub. If you bump into one, get out of there. Guardians prowl. Which means this thing wandered here on its own. Which means the warning was not hypothetical. It was a description of exactly this moment. Konami and Dia run. There is no discussion, no hesitation. Tita hangs above them as they sprint for the exit, its long limbs trailing after them through the air. Konami grabs Dia and leaps, carrying her clear of the attack's radius as the shockwave tears through the stone behind them. They land hard further down the corridor, and he sets her on her feet without slowing down. Black spikes erupt from the floor in a spreading pattern. Konami pushes Dia backward and plants himself between her and the strike. The spikes sink into the ground around him. He does not flinch. Konami crouches among the black spikes, sword drawn, having threaded the gap between them with a margin that does not bear thinking about. He is still standing. Fire explodes across the exit. A figure stands within the flames, her hair burning like a torch. The way out is gone. Konami stares at the wall of fire and the figure inside it and tries to understand what he is looking at. The fire settles, and the girl standing in it becomes visible. Wavy hair that moves like flame, sharp eyes, a light vest, and a decorative belt. She looks at Tita and says flatly that she is not its underling. A title appears beneath her image, the Decimal Guardian. Dia's composure finally cracks. She grabs Konami's arm and demands to know what they do, her voice climbing toward panic. "These are the Guardians," she says, "the ones that even Glenn could not beat." Tita's grin widens at the name. It says that takes it back. Glenn was on the right track a few years ago. He was close. Dia draws her sword. Her hand is shaking, but her jaw is set. She tells Konami they have to stand their ground, come what may. This is the dungeon. Things like this can happen. Konami says her name. The flame-haired girl, Alti, stands back and looks at Konami and Dia with something like recognition. She says simply, "There is a resemblance." Konami stares at her, sweating, wondering what that means and whether it matters right now. Tita spreads its arms wide and declares it the world's unwritten rule. When humans and monsters cross paths, they fight. Konami's thoughts go sharp with fury. This thing has no intention of letting them go. It never did. It wanted this from the moment it appeared. Tita turns to Alti and asks if she would like to go first, given the floor order. Alti says forget it. She still has things to do in this world, and she is not done with them yet. Tita considers, then asks if she would at least seal the chamber. Alti looks away, a small flame flickering near her face, and says fine. Alti vanishes in a swirl of fire, there one moment and gone the next. The room shudders. Heavy darkness claps shut across the exits like hands closing around the chamber. Tita hangs from the ceiling above Konami and Dia, its long limbs swaying, its grin unchanged. The two of them stand in the sealed room with their swords drawn. Tita lunges. Konami shouts and they scatter. Alti's voice drifts back from wherever she has gone. The seal is built on a ley line, so it will not hold long. Tita thanks her pleasantly. Dia says at least they have avoided a 2-on-2 fight. Konami agrees, but the exits are sealed, and until that changes, there is nowhere to run. Tita's clawed hand drips darkness onto the floor as it descends. It tells them that this room, this sealed space, is now its floor. The 20th floor, constructed hastily, admittedly, but it asks them to forgive the improvisation. It is on a work trip, so to speak. Konami and Dia stand back to back, watching it come. Tita hangs before them in full, the Vigesimal Guardian, the thief of darkness's essence, a spindly tower of swirling black with a white crescent grin that stretches wider than anything should. It announces the start of the Vigesimal trial. Konami and Dia face it together, and the dungeon holds its breath.